I got to play the game with every hero in Overwatch. That's right, all 41 of them in a single week. The play of the game is awarded to the player who made the most impactful play that changed the course of the game, normally by scoring multi-kills in rapid succession, although other factors such as cancelling ults, environmental kills, and finishing blows also affect who earns it. Now this makes some heroes easier to get a play of the game with than others, but you don't need to worry about that, at least not yet anyways. The rules for this challenge are pretty simple. First, I have to complete this challenge in 1 week, streaming for 7 days in a row. I am not allowed to use any custom game modes, just quick play, competitive, or even whatever arcade modes happen to be there if it didn't feel cheap to do so. I also would not have a duo pocketing me on Mercy or Ana for damage boost or nano, although I did end up doing this for just a couple of heroes, but mostly because it was just more fun to do it that way. The last and most important rule is that once I decide what hero I'm going to play, I am not allowed to play any other hero until I get a play of the game. So if I decide to play Lifeweaver and then decided that this character actually sucks and I'm bored out of my mind and I want to downgrade my PC to a pile of scrap, well, too bad, because now I can only install Lifeweaver until I get a play of the game with him, and then I can play someone else. This is especially a problem since counter-swapping has been running rampant lately, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. For some context before we begin, I'm a diamond DPS and support player that usually just plays within a pool of about 5 to 10 heroes, so some of these characters I'll be touching for the first real time, even if I've been playing against them for countless hours already. Also, one last thing before we start. I know that this video is a little bit long, so if you set this aside as a video that gets you through your lunch or queue times for the next week, that's more than I can ask for. With that out of the way, let's talk about day 1. I decided to start this challenge out with Juno, the newest hero of the Overwatch roster that literally just came out. If you're wondering how I had already gotten a play of the game with Juno, well, that's because I started filming this challenge during Juno's playtest period that was available for a few days back in July. For my first few games, I was mainly getting a feel for Juno and her abilities as I adjusted to a playstyle that made sense for her. I was actually pretty happy with how fun and balanced she seemed to be, and she seemed to output a good amount of heals and help the team out just enough without seeming too busted, while also having some really nice movement capabilities. There's also one other thing I noticed in all my matches with Juno.
Juno got that dumpy FR, she got the cake though. Y'all think Juno dances at the Pink Pony Club? New hero got a butt on her.
I mean, yes, but...
Oh yeah, I played with TTS on for text chat, because it was funny. It didn't take too long for me to start dominating with Juno, and on game 7, during a push game on Esperanza, I scored a triple kill on their Sigma, Ashe, and Juno, but my play of the game actually ended up being from later on in the match where I flanked behind the enemy team and popped my orbital ray, killed Sigma mid-flux, and dropped the enemy Juno and Mercy out of the sky. In total, Juno ended up taking 1 hour and 16 minutes and 7 games to achieve a play of the game for. Before we move on to the next hero, let me show you a quick tier list I made based on how bad I thought it would be to get a play of the game with each hero before I started this challenge. If you want to pause and look at where I placed everyone, then feel free, but for now just keep this in mind for the end of the challenge where I'm going to change this list based on how hard it actually was to get a play of the game with each hero. Next up, I decided to go with another support hero, Lucio. Now I do play Lucio as needed and ranked, but I decided to get a play of the game with him from playing Lucio Ball. Now I know some of you might be upset that I didn't go for a 360 quintuple environmental kill off the back ropes, but if that's what you want, just go watch Frogger. But there's one problem with Lucio Ball, I am really bad at it.
No, I can't.
I was actually pretty decent back during the first Summer Games event in 2016, but after not playing for somewhere around 8 years, my creaky bones obviously caught up to me. Nevertheless, on my 8th game, I earned a play of the game after scoring 1 goal, followed up by another one a few seconds later. Okay, maybe that second goal was scored by some dude who forgot what team he was on, but I got an achievement for this play, and we take those. Overall, it took me 1 hour and 1 minute and 8 games to get a play of the game on Lucio. I wanted to play some DPS next, so I chose Genji as the next hero to go for. Genji is one of those heroes that I rarely play, but I always enjoy myself when I do, and I like to play more of him in the future. My first game is difficult as there is a super aggressive Winston on the other team, but in my 3rd game on Colosseo, I got a decent blade and picked up 3 kills, and because of this, their team instantly swapped Zarya and Mei and just walked into me for the rest of the game. But luckily, this wasn't an issue as I had already gotten my play of the game from earlier in the match, where I made a really clean play outside of my ult and finished off their Winston before diving their backline and killing Juno and Bap before finishing off their Ashe as well. I had also killed their cast right before this, but the clip was too long to include everyone, I guess. I was actually pretty happy with this play considering how little practice I have on Genji, as it just felt really nice to pull off. Genji ended up taking 31 minutes and 3 games to complete for this challenge. I went with Junkrat next. I normally only play him after I go on a losing streak in comp and want to bully some kids in quick play for half an hour before logging off for the day. I thought Junk wouldn't be too bad as I just had to get a decent tire and half the team would die, but it ended up taking me just a couple games longer than I thought it would, and during game 3 on Junkertown, I got my play of the game when I was just firing down a hallway while standing in the middle of a Juno ult, and picked up a double kill on their Ana and Symmetra in true Junkrat fashion. He ended up taking me 31 minutes and 3 games to complete, the same as Genji. Keeping up with the DPS trend, I decided to play Reaper next. Reaper was the first hero I decided to main all the way back in the open beta for Xbox back in 2016. Unfortunately, Reaper is one of those heroes that is not good for every situation due to having no range capabilities, which makes him way less viable for ranked. But for quick play games, it's super easy to just tear through an unsuspecting team, so I was very confident this would be free. And sure enough, on my very first game on Oasis, I picked up a quick spin on their Juno and Kiri and then finished off their Rhine, before getting another 4K to finish out round 1 with a perfectly placed Blossom and clean follow-up. In round 2, I got my play of the game here, where I killed a Junk on high ground, dropped down to finish off the Rhine, 2-shot the Tracer, and then finish off the Juno and Moira with a nice little spin to secure the 5K. Reaper ended up taking me 1 game in 11 minutes, which was no surprise to me. I wanted to follow up Reaper with another hero I used to play a ton of, Hanzo. Hanzo was the hero I decided to main after Reaper back in my console days, but I wasn't as confident with him as I was with Reaper, as I had not played him very much recently, and I wasn't as consistent with my plays because of that. Nevertheless, I was able to get a play of the game during my second game on New Junk City, where I killed their Genji with my Dragon Strike, secured the kill on Juno with my Storm Arrows, and then finished off the Orisa who was running for her life in the back. Hanzo took me 2 games and 20 minutes to complete, and although my play was a bit basic, I was happy with it. I wanted to switch it up just a slight bit and play a hit-scan hero, Cassidy. I never played Cass too much, but I usually did pretty decent the few times I would randomly pick him up, and he is one of those heroes I would like to learn more and add to the heroes I play regularly. I struggled a bit due to playing for a good few hours at this point and not playing hit-scan for a few months, which is partially due to playing more support recently, and partially because of being banned a couple of times, completely unprompted of course. Either way, I was looking like Metro out there at first, and it took me a good few games for my aim to warm up. I got a few okay plays here and there, but I finally found success after 1 round of 2CP on Hanamura, where I high-nooned the Widow, finished off the Mercy who lived through my ults, and then helped kill the Juno. This is probably a good time to address this, but for some heroes that ended up taking a little longer than I would like, I would switch over from quick play to 2CP through the arcade game modes, which is why I was on Hanamura here. These games are generally much shorter and easier to make plays in due to being open queue, so I rarely use this as I wanted to do as many heroes as I could through quick play, and it could feel a bit cheap to play 2CP. But to be fair, my teammates weren't even playing in my quick play matches at this point. They were just role-playing in a corner of the map for whatever reason, so can you blame me for getting tilted? Cass ended up taking me 2 hours and 43 minutes and 12 games to complete. Pretty sloppy, but I knew that I was going to struggle a bit with the hit-scan heroes that I did not play as much, but play of the game is to play of the game all the same. Switching things up again, I decided to start making a dent towards the tank heroes, and I chose Ramatra as the first one to go for. I played Ran like 3 times, which is why I only have 1 hour of playtime on him, but he's really easy to understand and even easier to use to roll through quick play lobbies. And on my very first game on Dorado, I got a play of the game after mowing down their Kiriko, and then popped my ult the second I got it to kill the enemy Ball and Sombra, while also getting kill credit on the Juno. It took 14 minutes and 1 game to do Ramatra, which was a little sooner than I thought, but still was pretty expected. For my next tank hero, I went with Doomfist, the ex-DPS and hopefully soon-to-be DPS hero. I've barely played any Doom, but I knew him well enough to properly make use of his abilities, even if I didn't know all of his tech and I wasn't good enough to make the entire other team rage quit. On my second game of Doom, I got to play the game after slamming then shooting their Rhine, whiffing my punch on their Moira who had just faded, and then finishing off their Moira with a charge punch and primary fire after barely living on 39 HP. A pretty lackluster play, but hey, if I was gonna go for a 5k on every character, I'd be here for like a good few months probably. Doom ended up taking 27 minutes and 2 games to complete, keeping up the pace for quick plays of the game. For my last year of day 1, I went with another tank hero, Reinhardt. Ryan is someone that I'm hit or miss with, but I also rarely play him at all, as is the same with pretty much every other tank. I wasn't able to get a lot of value out of my shatters in my first couple of games due to them having a life weaver just grabbing them off the ground every time, but I did get this pretty funny pin on a Mercy going for the greediest res of her life during a match on Havana, which was completely intentional by the way. In a Junkertown match on my 4th game, I got my play of the game after I swung on a Doom, pinned a Symmetra off the map, and then fire-striked and swung on a Juno who was desperately trying to go back to spawn. Nothing crazy like a 5-man shatter, but I'm guessing I got the play here because I got an environmental kill, or maybe it's just because no one else in the lobby did anything good. Ryan took me 36 minutes and 4 games to complete, and I did end up having a lot of fun on him. So, after getting to play the game with a total of 10 heroes on my first day, which is a quarter of the entire roster, I was feeling pretty good, as I was originally aiming for about 7 heroes for this day, as I didn't know how bad this was going to be. But to be fair, I did play a lot of easy characters. I ended up playing 43 games, and I streamed for 8 hours and 27 minutes over at twitch.tv/Cyberion975. You should go drop a follow. This challenge is going pretty smoothly, and I was having a lot of fun, so I had high hopes going into day 2. I plan to do a similar amount of heroes today compared to day 1, and I decided to start with Mr. Overwatch himself, Winston. I have almost no experience on Winston, and I was this close to playing Winston's beach volleyball to get my play of the game there, but I am so glad that I didn't. In my first quick play match on Servalsa, I was absolutely dominating the lobby. I was the puppet master controlling everything, and no one could so much as think without my say-so. I ended up going 41-6 and was just playing great from start to finish, and my play of the game was right here when I chased down a Lucio, dove and stomped on both Adventure and Brig at the same time, stabbed down an Orisa, and sniped a soldier. This was a great way for me to start the day, as I honestly had no idea if I was going to do well on Monkey or not, but I ended up doing absolutely phenomenal, and I was honestly super proud of the way I played. I also wanted to show this primal I got right at the end of the game, where I knocked both Soldier and a Brig mid-rally off the map, as this just as easily could have been my play of the game. Winston ended up taking me 1 game and 15 minutes to complete, although the timer did go up by about 41 minutes due to me messing around in beach volleyball for a bit. Next on the list for me was Roadhog. I hadn't played Hog much since his rework, but I knew how his kit worked from playing against him, even if I was still missing half of my hooks. Fortunately, during game 47 on Numbani, I scored a pretty underwhelming play of the game, where I diffed the enemy Roadhog a bit and cleaned up a hook kill on Lucio. But hey, we take those. Honestly, it felt like I wasn't playing great on Hog these few games, but this was the first hero where I genuinely felt held back by my team.
Oh my god, I can't aim for shit.
True. I mean, I hate to be a scoreboard A&D, but I had over double the enemy tank's damage, and as much damage as both of my DPS combined here, and we still lost. I'm not going to complain about this too much here. I just felt like I wasn't able to improve on Hog or have as much fun as I would have liked to because of it. All in all, Roadhog ended up taking me 3 games and 25 minutes to earn a play of the game for. The next hero is every Overwatch player's favorite e-girl, D.Va. D.Va is another one of those heroes that I rarely play, but I always surprise myself whenever I do, and sure enough, I got to play the game on my first match on Rialto, where I gunned down a Junkrat and went on to dive a Juno in her backline. This clip was pretty underwhelming considering how I played decently well for the entire match, even if I didn't get a crazy bomb or squish kill or anything, but I guess I shouldn't complain. Although this is a good example of how a random slow and boring double kill can end up being the play of the game. D.Va ended up taking me 1 game and 7 minutes to complete, and I wish I had more I could say about her, but I didn't even get the chance to warm up on her before I was already done. Following up D.Va is Orisa. Orisa is notorious for being a hero that is easy for new tank players to use and generally gets way too much value for how little skill and time you have to put in. And sure enough, she was yet another hero that only took 1 match for me to get a play of the game when I helped kill a Doom on point and then charge down the enemy team to spear and mow down a Cass and Juno. Unsurprisingly, it only took me 1 game and 13 minutes to do Orisa, which meant I could spend a bit more time on my next hero. I decided to switch from tank heroes back to DPS, and I decided to tackle someone I thought would be a little harder for me, Ashe. I'm actually fairly decent on Ashe, even though I haven't played her too much, but she is a hit scan hero, which means I am less consistent with her, although the thing I am worse at on Ashe are my bobs. It didn't take me as long to warm up on Ashe as it did on Cassidy, and on game 54 during a match on Antarctic Peninsula, I finally got to play the game after helping to kill an ulting Pharah, shooting down a Juno, and finishing off the Ramadra. Ashe ended up taking me 6 games in 1 hour and 7 minutes to complete, under half of the time in games that it took me for Cassidy. Going back to tank heroes, I decided to tackle Sigma next. I've watched plenty of Sigma gameplay, but when it comes to personal experience I had next to none, so I wasn't expecting him to go smoothly as the other tanks. He definitely took some getting used to, and I used Throw on cooldown often, but it didn't take too long, as I was able to score this play on game 57 during a round of defense on Parisiio, where I stun and clean up a Genji, get some solid chip damage on the enemy supports, and then kill a Junkrat that gets a little too greedy. Nothing too flashy here, but I was glad that Sig didn't end up taking very many games, as I could have seen him dragging on for much longer. Sigma ended up taking 3 games and 37 minutes to complete, which was much sooner than I was planning for. For my next hero, I decided to do my first support in a while, Moira. Moira is someone that is super easy to play and even easier to DPS on, as well as being someone that I pull out in ranked when needed, so I thought she would take just a couple of games. However, this took a decent bit longer than it should have as I began playing way too aggressively for the sake of play of the game, which showed just how much the challenge was getting to me and affecting my normal playstyle by this point. I kept trying to get a massive play with Cole that kept my team alive while stealing a good few kills, but I eventually lucked out with a pretty basic play on Suravasa where I helped kill this Juno, finished off a Torb with a skill orb, and sucked a Life Weaver dry to finish out the clip. But hey, play of the game is play of the game. Moira still didn't end up taking too long for a support hero, coming in at 6 games and 1 hour and 28 minutes to complete. Next up is another tank hero that I have almost no experience with, Zarya. I don't like playing against Zarya very much, but it isn't actually too bad playing her, except for non-stop counter picks and Rhines that I couldn't do a whole lot about. Nonetheless, I was still actually doing pretty decent. I had a really good game on Gibraltar where I was spawn camping for the first few minutes of the match, and had some really nice grabs on them where I picked up 4 kills here and a solid 3 kills here, as well as just having some really solid picks. After a quick bout of mystery heroes, they eventually discovered Mauga and just burned through my bubbles with no care in the world, which won them the match, but I was still feeling pretty good about my chances for the play of the game, considering how well I did early on, and the fact that I had well over double the damage of the other team's tank and had 8 grab kills. But what do you know, Junkrat stole it by making the skillful play of pressing Q and then left clicking once. Pretty much half the time I didn't get to play the game in this challenge is because there's a Junkrat on the other team who was mindlessly holding down left click while watching YouTube shorts on a second monitor, so just know that this is something that was constantly happening in my games. I had another 4-man grab during my 68th match on Hollywood, but unfortunately that play of the game was stolen by my Thara who was shooting into my grab. However, on the very next game on Ilios, I finally found some luck. Despite playing into a Reinhardt, I got my play of the game here after I sidestepped a Shatter, repositioned myself to dodge a pin, and then walk forward to beam down Rein, Juno, and then finish off Soldier with a quick melee. All in all, Zarya did not take as long as I made her out to be, coming in at 6 games in 1 hour and 19 minutes, but it felt like I should have gotten her much sooner, and she did take much longer than any other tank so far. The last hero I was going to attempt for day 2 was Bastion. I had already completed 8 heroes today, so I was perfectly content just playing a few games with Bastion and warm up for tomorrow, but on the very last match I was going to play today, I scored my play of the game during Overton East Speranza, where I gunned down their Juno and got some damage on Genji before he died, and finished off a Mercy with my nade, who had just rezzed the Juno. Not too flashy of a play, but I was pretty happy considering I was planning on finishing Bastion tomorrow, but I was not going to be able to start with someone fresh. Bastion ended up taking me 4 games and 46 minutes to complete. Wrapping up day 2, I completed another 9 heroes today, bringing up my total to 19, just under half of the roster in my first 2 days. However, if you think I'm going to be finishing this challenge early, don't worry, there's plenty of more suffering waiting for me. I completed 30 games, streamed for 6 hours and 37 minutes, for a total of 73 games and 15 hours and 4 minutes for this challenge so far. Before I talk about day 3, it's worth mentioning that Juno's trial period had just ended, so she would not be in any of our matches for the remainder of this challenge. For day 3, I plan on playing more heroes that I haven't played too much, but I thought were going to be pretty easy to complete, and I decided to start out with Mauga. Mauga is one of those heroes that a cave dweller can understand, so I knew he'd be pretty free. Sure enough, during game 75 on New Queen Street, I got my play of the game after mowing down the enemy Ana, Torb and Astura, and Zen. Pretty standard Mauga play, but it's kinda hard to express any high level skill on him outside of a perfectly placed cage. He took me a grand total of 2 games and 18 minutes to complete. Next up is a tank hero that I'm a pretty big fan of, Junker Queen. JQ is someone who has a pretty interesting kit, but generally underperforms compared to other tanks, but I was excited to get to play her. It took a couple games to get used to her cooldowns, but during my 4th game on New Junk City, I hit one of my favorite plays of the game of the entire challenge after I hit a nano rampage to finish off a Pharah, shoot and kill Kiri with a quick melee, kill a seriously out of position Widow, and then hit the fattest predictive night throw of all time on a Moira who definitely reported me for cheating afterwards. You can't teach this in school, this is true instinct and game sense on display right here. Here, watch it one more time. God damn, I was on something else right here. Queen ended up taking me 4 games and 41 minutes to complete, and she was one of the most fun heroes to play thus far. Next up is the support hero, Illari. Illari has maybe the most out-of-place ultimate ability in the entire game that truly makes you scratch your head and wonder how she classifies as support while she kills the entire enemy team. Because of this, I was pretty confident she would not take too long, in spite of me pretty much never having played her before. Sure enough, on my 2nd match on Havana, I earned my play of the game by finishing off the Sunstruck Zen, beaming a Widow a couple of times, and finishing off a Kiriko. Not a crazy 5k explosion, but we love early play of the games around here. Illari took me 24 minutes and 2 games to complete, which let me play another recently broken character, Pharah. Pharah is someone that I barely ever played to begin with, and I don't think I touched her sensor rework until now. I didn't know how long it would take since I was whiffing every part of my kit even after getting nanoed, but I still managed to secure play of the game in my first match on Runasapi when I killed a Junk stuck in a grav, and then followed up with a barrage onto an Ana and got kill credit on a soldier mid-visor. Pretty sloppy overall, but we love heroes that only take one game in 12 minutes to complete. A hero that is going to take me much more than a single game to complete is Baptiste. Bap is someone that I've tried here and there, but he always feels a bit off for me, as I would rather play other support heroes to fulfill the same role that he does. On top of this, he has a hit scan here, which, you know, I generally struggle with. I was able to play Bap normally and help my team enough to not get accused of throwing, but this didn't give me any opportunities to DPS and my windows were god awful. Bap was starting to drag out and I wasn't making any noticeable progress, so I decided to commit the cardinal sin of playing 2 CP to avoid it taking forever. Eventually, after a quick defense on Horizon Leader Colony on my 94th match, I finally found my play of the game after popping a window and killing Kiri, Ana, and Roadhog. Pretty same play, but I really didn't want to play Bap anymore as there's worse characters I would need to spend more time with later on, and he already took me 12 games and 2 hours and 4 minutes to complete. Next up is the only hero I'd play today that I actually have experience playing, Soldier 76. Soldier is almost always a pretty stable pick in Overwatch, and despite him being hit scanned, I was still good enough on him. It didn't take too long. In a game 97 on Gibraltar, I scored a play of the game here when I killed a Junkrat and Zenyatta off a Kitsune rush and shot down a Kiriko in the back. Although it looks like I only got 3 kills here, I also got credit for the kills on Bastion and Ramatra, as I damaged them just before the clip started, meaning I'd helped kill all 5 players on the other team. Soldier took me 3 games and 27 minutes to complete, which was about what I was expecting from him. I chose to do another DPS hero next, this time being the newest addition to the role, Venture. I've only really played Venture a little bit, but they're pretty easy to understand, so I didn't think it'd be too bad. I was playing pretty consistently, but I didn't get any crazy multi-kills, which meant that I didn't end up getting my play of the game until game 106 on Junkertown, after I drilled down a Lifeweaver, finished off a Cass, and damaged a Tracer who my ball finished off. Venture ended up taking me 9 games and 1 hour and 49 minutes to complete, which was a little high compared to some other DPS heroes, but still not too bad. For the rest of the day, I started playing some Tracer just to test my luck and see if I could possibly get her done quick, but I was expecting to have to play her more tomorrow, which is what I ended up deciding to do after not pulling off any crazy plays. I ended day 3 playing 36 games and streaming for 6 hours and 35 minutes for a combined 109 games and 21 hours and 39 minutes. I completed 7 heroes today, which is a little less than the previous 2 days, but still a really solid pace, putting us at a total of 26 heroes, only leaving 15 heroes left for the remaining 4 days. I picked Tracer back up again today and got to work. It took me a good while to get used to Tracer as she is very different from any hero I normally play, and although I was able to land a good amount of my shots, not enough of them were headshots, which means I was forced to pull back before securing a majority of my kills. Oh yeah, I also suck at pulses. I feel like I would get much better at pulses if I spent a bit more time on Tracer, but the trajectory and timing just did not feel very intuitive to me starting out. So I turned my focus to the one thing that would guarantee me a free pulse bomb multi-kill. A Zarya on my team hitting a fat grav. There's just one problem with this, however. Nobody in quick play ever touched a tank other than Rhine, Doom, and Ball, and the 2 times I did get a Zarya, they would swap before they farmed their ult, or just solo grab the enemy tank and still lose the 1v1. So against my better judgment, I decided to play 2 CP, and on game 125 during a round of defense on Temple of Anubis, I finally made a play of the game where I shoot down a Junk and TP behind him to finish him off, and then outmaneuver Sombra to pick up a 2nd kill. You can probably tell by this clip that I was still a bit delayed in adjusting my aim after I blinked and wasn't getting close enough for my quick melees to make contact. But I do think I at least understand what I had to do on Tracer, even if my mechanics were extremely sloppy. Tracer is another hero that I would like to learn well enough to be able to play in comp someday, but I guess that'll have to wait for another time. All in all, Tracer took me 19 games and 3 hours and 25 minutes to earn a play of the game for, almost an hour longer than my previous worst hero. Next up was another hero that I barely played, although this one has way less skill expression than the Tracer, which is Torbjorn. Torb has a reputation for being a bit of a troll pick, or someone that new players seem to resonate well with. He's one of those heroes that does a little bit of everything, but worse than other heroes. He has a shotgun, but Reaper generally does more damage and can get better angles than Torb. His right click does a massive amount of damage on headshots, but you can just play Hanzo and do even more damage. The most unique part of Torb's basic abilities is the fact that he can throw down a turret with way too much health that will automatically lock onto and shoot enemies that walk into his line of sight, which can give Torb players free ult charge and cleanups on kills. But of course I was bad with this seemingly easy to use ability because I kept trying to get the perfect placement in corners for whatever reason, which would cause the turrets to instantly break because Blizzard has good map design. I was doing decently well on Torb, but I rarely picked up anything better than a double kill until game 129 on Lijiang Tower, where I sprayed a break down a hallway, unloaded into the Doom for a good few seconds, and then finished off the Soldier. I didn't know if this would be the play I would get for this game, but I was still pretty confident that the person getting play of the game would be me, as I picked up a couple of other good multi-kills this match. Torb ended up taking me 4 games and 51 minutes to complete, which wasn't too bad at all. Following up Torb is another hero that no one will respect you for playing, Mei. I actually think there's a decent bit of skill expression to Mei's ice walls, but the problem is that they can also get in the way of your own team, and most people in lower elo lobbies don't even realize you can cancel your walls early. I thought Mei would be pretty quick to do as her ultimate is super good for overtime situations, which is where I've seen most of her plays of the game in ranked. But the problem was that I was playing quick play because I wasn't going to take my rank, which resulted in me rarely ever getting more than a couple of people in my ults at a time. Eventually, I bit the bullet and decided to play some 2CP as Mei was taking way longer than I wanted to, and I wasn't having that much fun on her, and during game 143 on Horizon Lunar Colony, I scored this play of the game where I headshot their carry, snipe the soldier, and go down to point to finish off a tour with a nice little headshot. Mei took me 14 games and 2 hours and 32 minutes to complete, which was a lot more than I was thinking, but still not terrible all things considered. Next up is the first support hero in a little while, Kiriko. I'm pretty solid on Kiri, and she's one of the top supports I play in ranked, so I knew she had insane damage potential if you can consistently land headshots, especially in her ult. Normally I play Kiri 70% heal bot and 30% DPS, but I was going to try and play her more like 40% heals and 60% DPS, although I was still healing a bit more than I probably should have been for this challenge due to my habits in ranked. During game 146 on Colosseo, I got my play of the game after popping my Kitsune, pre-cleansing an Ana nade, and then executed a Venture before doing some solid damage on the Kiri and Ana before I Ryan cleaned them up. Kinda sloppy to be honest, but I was still pretty happy with them. Kiri ended up only taking 3 games and 39 minutes to complete. I knew Kiri wouldn't be too bad, but she's still support, so picking her up early felt really nice. I played Echo for a couple hours today, and although I was doing pretty good, I didn't end up getting a play of the game yet, so I decided to finish her tomorrow. Finishing out day 4, I played 45 games and streamed for 8 hours and 25 minutes for a combined 154 games and 30 hours and 4 minutes streamed. I only ended up completing 4 heroes today, but I didn't think it would be a big deal due to the massive lead I made for myself, putting us at 30 heroes finished, leaving only 11 heroes left for the remaining 3 days. My goal for day 5 was simple. I wanted to do 5 to 6 heroes to make up for only doing 4 yesterday. So I picked Echo back up, and on my very first game of the day, I actually got my play of the game, which was a huge breath of fresh air and a great way to start the day. I beamed down a baby diva who's trying to remech, finished off an Alari, and then sniped a Sojourn with my stickies. I know I've said this like 4 times already, but Echo is someone else I hope to learn and play more in the future as they have a very versatile and fun playstyle, but for now I was content with playing Echo for a combined 9 games in 1 hour and 40 minutes between days 4 and 5. I wanted to go with another DPS next, so I decided on Sojourn. I pretty much never touched Sojourn, but I knew I sucked on her, which is surprising considering I'm pretty solid on Soldier. I was okay with my primary fire, but I had around 10% accuracy for headshot rails if I'm being extremely generous to myself. I would whiff a majority of my ults, and I overall didn't feel like I was improving very much, so I decided to try some 2CP games. I didn't feel too bad about playing arcade games for Soj, as I don't ever plan on playing her again unless I'm forced to. And after a few assault matches, I got to play the game on Volskaya Industries when I railed a Moira's skull, bought my ult to rail a Maga a good few times before swapping targets after he got bubbled, and railed a Zen in the head to finish out the clip. All in all, it took me 11 games and 1 hour and 48 minutes to finish out Sojourn. Following up Soj is Brigitte. I've never really played Brig, but I was excited to, as she seemed like someone I could have a lot of fun on. After a few games, I decided to duo with an Ana who kept nanoing me because Brig is just more fun to play when you can get a nano rally a couple times a match. It still took a few games before I was able to get any crazy multi-kills, but eventually during game 178 on New Junk City, I scored a play of the game after popping a nano rally and diffing their Rhine, then slapped Soldier around a few times, moved on to Ana, and finished off Venture for a solid 4 kills. Brig took me 12 games and 2 hours and 5 minutes to complete, which is pretty good for a support hero. Huge thanks again to Pathos for the nano pocket on Brig, as I just had more fun playing her because of this. I went with another sub hero that could DPS next, Zenyatta. I don't really play Zen or resonate with his playstyle all that much, but I did really like this weapon charm I used that matches skin perfectly because it was really cute and satisfying to use. Since I didn't have to heal bot nonstop like some other heroes, I could pretty much just focus on shooting the other team for a majority of my matches. My Discord and Harmony orb usage was actually pretty nice though, which surprised me because I thought I would have more trouble figuring it out, but it's actually pretty intuitive for me. After just a few matches, I earned a play of the game during game 184 in Midtown after killing a Zarya, Ana, Soldier Midvisor, and then a Mercy who just pulled off a res. If you're wondering why my screen was blurry for that, it's because my games were bugged for a good few hours where every kill cam and play of the game was blurred, and I just couldn't be bothered to restart my game, so I'm replaying the clip from during the round now. Zen surprisingly only took me 6 games and 1 hour and 39 minutes to complete, which gave me a bit more room to work with for the next hero I decided on. I was either going to play Sombra or Symmetra, but I decided on Sombra as I thought she wouldn't be too bad, or at least a little faster than Symmetra would be. Sombra is hands down the hero with the worst reputation in the entire game because she is able to give herself a massive advantage in whatever engagement she decides to participate in, and it's up to you to find where she is and cancel her hack before she either kills you in 2 seconds or goes invisible only to reappear 3 minutes later and spawn camp you while you aren't even looking at your screen. I've pretty much never played Sombra before or after her rework, so I didn't know how good I would be or not, although I wasn't too worried. On my very first game, I had a 5-man EMP and got an achievement, which was cool I guess, and I continued to learn how to best use my cooldowns and improved over the coming games. I started playing pretty well, and I was providing some good value to my team. For a Sombra player, sure, I was still a bit inconsistent with my cooldowns and my aim could use some work, but I was noticeably improving with each game that I played. During a round on King's Row, I even cancelled an enemy Sombra's EMP, which felt really dirty, but was also fun to pull off. Something else that I had a lot of fun doing was hacking Kirikos who were just brazenly standing in the open waiting to cleanse themselves from a diva bomb, only for me to punish them and have a good laugh. Later on, I even became solid at winning 1v1s against enemy Sombras, which, I'll be honest, it felt very odd to diff other players on a character that I'd really just started playing that same day. One thing I did notice was that some people started spy checking me so aggressively the instant they so much as thought I was within a mile radius of them, or just completely abandoned their team to hunt me down, which is really surprising me and was something that I wasn't expecting at all since I normally don't notice other players doing this in Overwatch. After some time, my progress started to plateau, and I began to notice something which was making my games infinitely less fun. My teammates. Now this isn't the classic throw the game and blame your team maneuver. Take a look at this clip from a match on Rialto where an enemy Echo copies our Reinhardt, and then for some godforsaken reason, this absolute subhuman cave roller charges straight off the map, not even coming remotely close to hitting a pin. And of course, their Echo then gets nanoed and runs through our entire team, and oh yeah, my kill cam was still bugged and blurry at this point because Blizzard is a small indie game studio apparently. For the record, I was the only person on my entire team that had a single kill, and we were already onto the 3rd point by now, and our Rhine was sitting with a solid 200 damage.
You know, I'm in favor of execution. Maybe our entire team needs to be executed after tonight.
This isn't the only time something like this happened, by the way. This is just the most disgusting example that I still vividly remember to this day. Suddenly there was a shift. I was no longer just getting god-awful teammates, I was just straight up getting robbed at my place of the game now. Like look at this game on Eichenwald where during a tense overtime situation, I picked up 4 kills, winning us the game. But nope, the play of the game went to a Moira who got a random double kill from just holding right click for the entire clip. Or this time on Blizzard World where I made the best play I would ever make on Sombra.
Ready to activate the EMP. Apagando las luces.
I got it. If that's not it,
Nice EMP.
if that's not it, I don't know what is. There has to be it. But of course that wasn't it.
GGWP.
Alright, moment of truth. Is this a complete scam and shame of a challenge?
GG.
Will I finally be rewarded for my
Glorious
efforts?
battle reign. For Gloria.
What the hell did he do?
For honor.
It's still raining. Why is it still raining? I did what I was supposed to. That's not fair.
Why would a 5-man EMP and team wipe, a literal textbook perfect play, get play the game? Nope. A soldier who got 3 kills and was walking and missing shots for half a clip got it instead. Or how about the time on Rialto where I completely turned the tide of a losing fight and hit a 3-man EMP and picked up 4 kills? Nope. A drunk guy who got 1 final blow during my EMP got the play of the game instead. What about the time with Cervasa where I hit a 5-man EMP to cancel the Moira's call and then hunted down and killed everyone on the other team? Nope. A Moira gets it. Something was wrong. I was playing really well, but I just wasn't getting a play of the game. Minutes turned to hours, and hours turned to, well, several hours, but time and time again, I was getting robbed of that sweet, sweet play of the game. My goal became simple. I was not going to end stream until I got a play of the game with Sombra. No breaks for eating a sleeping force because the grind set doesn't wait for you to have a full tummy or good night's rest. And so, I quietly struggled for hours and hours until... maybe... By the way, this is the same Sombra player that I hacked out of the EMP that I mentioned earlier, and we even won with 5 minutes left on the clock, but no, some random 2.5 kills from the first minute of the game got her play of the game. I returned to grinding quick play matches for hours on end, hoping for anything I did to become a play of the game. If you're wondering how my mental was doing after being forced to only play Sombra for such a long time, well, I'll let this clip speak for itself.
Boop the snoot. I was petting my dog LOL. That was psychic. Nice.
I hope their dog dies. In Minecraft. I'd even started listening to random motivational speeches on YouTube at some point, although this bit got old pretty fast.
The most stupid, antiquated, ridiculous concept on planet Earth today very well may be that a day is 24 hours. It's so stupid. Noon, and I'm not crazy. You're crazy thinking it takes 24 hours, just like some dude in a cave did 300 years ago. And it's
Dude in a cave 300 years ago? 300? I remember when I thought a mere few hours earlier, Sombra shouldn't be too bad, I said. She should take maybe an hour or two, and then we can play some Symmetra, I cluelessly proclaimed. I kept playing and playing, but as fatigue began to set in, I started to think of ways to get out. Should I take a break and get some sleep? Maybe end stream and try again tomorrow? Maybe, but let's just play one more game first. And so, I kept going, convincing myself that it could be done. I barely even recognized the games I was playing anymore, as time after time again, I couldn't manage to find myself on the play of the game screen. But eventually, after a devastating loss at King's Row, something unexpected happened.
GG.
Play of the game.
Oh my fucking god. Oh my god.
Apagando las luces.
Oh my. Oh. Oh. About damn time. That's right. A pretty normal triple kill off of an EMP ended up finally getting me a play of the game. Now you might be thinking, okay, I get that Sombra took you an extremely long time, so it's gonna end up being maybe like 5 or 6 hours? No? Okay, maybe 8? Nah, you gotta pump those numbers up, that's not even remotely close. I ended up getting my play of the game on game number 275. Now as a reminder, Zenyatta, you know, the hero we did before her, ended on game 184. That's right, Sombra ended up taking me 91 games in 18 hours and 12 minutes to finally achieve a play of the game for. I'm gonna give you a bit of a spoiler here, but that's longer than every other DPS hero combined, which ended up taking me 17 hours and 18 minutes. Since I completed 4 heroes before this, that means that on day 5 I ended up streaming for a grand total of 24 hours and 31 minutes and completed 5 heroes today. The longest I had ever streamed before this was for 15.5 hours back when Fortnite had the Eminem event for some reason, so I was feeling pretty worn out, especially since I hadn't eaten or slept for a full day, but I was very glad that I held on and pulled through as I felt so relieved to finally finish Sombra. For some reason, I never ended up resorting to playing 2CP on Sombra, although I think it was just because the queue times were too long to be honest. With only 6 heroes and 2 days left to finish the challenge, I was prepared to tackle day 6. I only had a mix of leftover heroes from DPS and tank, and some harder support heroes left at this point, so I decided to finish off the DPS and tank heroes today, so that I could direct all of my efforts toward the hardest heroes for the final day. It's a little late to be saying this, but the way I chose what heroes I would play for this challenge was almost entirely dependent on what I felt was reasonable to do at that given moment, although I did tend to prioritize the heroes that I thought would be easier to do, or that I had more experience with first. So, my plan for today was to play Symmetra, Widowmaker, Wrecking Ball, and Ana. Starting off the day of Symmetra, I honestly didn't know how this would go. I'd actually seen a fair bit of sim play of the games during this challenge already, but I never played her, so I wasn't sure how long it was going to take me. Although my first couple of games were a bit rough, during game 278 on Hollywood, I hit the super fast triple kill on their Venture, Lucio, and Cassidy at the beginning of the round that I thought had potential to be play of the game. But I actually ended up getting it later in the match when I beamed down Doomfist, popped down my barrier to avoid a high noon, and then beamed down the now useless Cass and Ana. I was really proud of this play because I made the split-second decision to pop my barrier and push the team through the high noon, and it worked out exactly as I saw in my head, which was super satisfying, and it felt like a super high-level play for a character that I had barely touched. Symmetra took me 3 games and 34 minutes to complete, which definitely felt nice considering how miserable Sombra was. Next on the list was Widowmaker, my final DPS hero. In the 8 years I've been playing Overwatch, I had only accumulated a total of 3 hours of playtime on Widow, and always felt entirely useless and devoid of skill anytime I tried to pick her up, so I was expecting her to take quite a long time. However, I didn't suck at all. In fact, I was actually kinda clean with them. my very first game, I had a couple decent shots on a Tracer and skill checked a Mercy who was getting a little greedy with her Valk. Of course, these shots were still few and far between at this point, as I wasn't very consistent yet, but that didn't stop me from getting flamed by my tank. The funny thing is, this guy was being very supportive and constructive after round 1, but I guess something snapped and he decided being nice was now beneath him. Two problems I had on Widow were forgetting to cancel my grapple early, which wasn't too hard to fix, I just needed to get used to it, but my other issue was that I was landing headshots before I fully charged them, which resulted in me failing to pick up several kills and dragged out this segment for just a bit longer. For some reason, every game, starting with my very first match, there was a Sombra on the other team whose sole purpose was to dive and spawn camp me. During a match on Esperanza, I landed my first ever jump shot on this Reaper, which gave me an achievement, and after killing them just one more time, they decided to say, "Fuck it, I'm ruining this game for the Widow now." Look at this clip where that same guy, now in Sombra, flanks behind and I end up winning the SMG 1v1, only for a Lucio and Mercy to come behind to kill me. Like, I still sucked at Widow at this point, and there was nothing to justify 3 people on the other team abandoning the objective to spawn camp me. The Sombra is literally doing nothing else but spawn camping me, and even had the audacity to teabag me, and then go straight back to my spawn to wait for me again. Although this time, I punished him with a clean headshot while my team was on the complete other side of the map, pushing the bot for the final few meters. My favorite shot I had on Widow was probably during this match on Paricio, where I saw my Curie dueling the enemy Ana and then get slept, so I grappled up and hit the smallest flick mini charge headshot ever to finish the kill, which was really funny because of how unnecessarily flashy it felt. Everything was going well, and I was steadily improving until I made the biggest mistake of the entire challenge so far on a game of Midtown. I think I mentioned before, I got one play of the game with her in ranked, and I just killed both her DPS solo, and then was just healing our tank. I just realized what I did, and I feel disgusted with myself. Hold on. Oh no. I'm like a Pavlovian dog. Oh no. I just auto-selected Sombra without thinking. Oh. It's hardwired into my brain now. I feel so sad now. Oh my god. Oh no. I guess those 18 hours of Sombra finally caught up to me, and this made me triple check my hero selection for every game in the rest of the challenge. Luckily, just a few games later, I got a lucky play of the game on New Junk City after spraying down a Moira, hitting a nice headshot on a Nash, and then completely whiffing on a Sigma. Nothing too crazy, and I made some better plays in earlier games, but I wasn't going to complain about a Widow only taking me 9 games in 1 hour and 51 minutes to complete. Next up was the last tank hero, Wrecking Ball. I had a whopping 26 minutes of playtime on him beforehand, and although I understood his kit, my movement sucked. How do I? On my first game, I felt so out of place that I kept just dying in embarrassing ways due to not being able to figure out how to make the hamster move the way I wanted him to. I somehow managed to win my first game, but I think that's just because the enemy team realized they could have more fun if they just bullied me in a corner instead. I also decided that every game I played on, I would share a fun fact with my team, such as how I was the Season 1 MVP for the Shanghai Dragons, or how I was the #1 ranked ball player in OCE. And although I was getting a bit better on ball, nothing too notable happened. That is, other than a Reinhardt who complained about me doing too much damage on ball and then started slinging slurs around like he was afraid of them going out of style. Anyways, a couple games later, during a round of attack on Rialto, I got to play the game after shooting down a junk and slammed and picked up a kill on a Cass who rolled directly into a mine. A dumb play for an even dumber character. The hamster ended up taking me 7 games in 1 hour and 33 minutes to complete, which isn't too bad honestly, although he did take the long side of the tank heroes. After completing 3 heroes in about 4 hours, I had a lot of time to work on our next hero, Ana. I'm actually really good on Ana, and she has been the support hero I've been playing the most the past couple of seasons. The problem with Ana is that her ultimate only benefits her teammates and doesn't buff herself at all, since she can only nano others. Other support heroes can buff themselves and the teams, such as Bap and Curie, or just run through the enemy team themselves, like Moira and Alari. This isn't really a massive deal, however, as Ana actually has some crazy potential for damage, as her primary fire does 70 damage, and her nade does 90 damage, as well as preventing heals, which makes other supports unable to interfere with the kill. I ended up using my nano to heal my teammates who were about to die, or help them charge an ult that would benefit me, although I'd still occasionally let my team make some good plays with my nano. I knew Ana would take a while to do, so I strapped in, strapped on, and prepared for another long session. At first, I was generally just playing as a good support and helping my team, but I was eventually able to break my habits and start DPSing a bit more. I was swapping back and forth between quick play and 2CP to farm good multi-kills, but I didn't get anything better than a triple kill until a match of Hanamuro, where I finished a baby diva, killed their Ana, finished off a Brig, and killed a Nano Reaper, 4 extremely high value kills where I got all the final blows, but the play of the game went to an Orisa that got an environmental kill. I mentioned this towards the start of the video, but environmental kills count way more than any other normal kill for a play of the game, but unfortunately the only way for an Ana player to get one would be to sleep someone off the side of the map, which I sadly never did during this challenge, although I have pulled it off in ranked before. I played for several more hours, but the best I could manage was triple kills, like this one in Busan where I got the final blows on an Ashe, BAP, and Sigma in very quick succession. But unfortunately, these just weren't enough to compete with real DPS heroes. I decided to call it there for the day and pick up Ana tomorrow, as I didn't want to repeat of the Sombra incident. But I still ended up streaming for 17 hours and 31 minutes, and played 82 games today, although a majority of this was from my attempts on Ana, as the other 3 heroes only ended up taking me 4 hours to complete. Wrapping up day 6, I completed a total of 38 heroes, meaning that I had just 3 heroes left to complete on the final day. At this point in the challenge, I only had 3 heroes remaining: Ana, Mercy, and Lifeweaver, all of which are support heroes. My plan for day 7 was simple. I would not end stream until I got play of the game for these 3 characters and finish the challenge, no matter how long it took. Unlike with Sombra, I would make sure to take breaks to eat and sleep as needed, as I truly had no idea how long this would go on for. I was wearing my lucky jersey, I was locked in, strapped on, and I was ready to finish this. I picked Ana back up, and I pivoted from trying to steal final blows and multi-kills to hoping to get a Zarya, who's good enough to get more than 2 people in a grab, and splashing the entire enemy team with my nade. The only problem with this is that I never got a Zarya, and whenever I did, they either completely whiffed their grab or solo grabbed the enemy tank. But eventually, the stars aligned and I got exactly what I was looking for.
LOL.
Who did the most there? That could be Lifeweaver, honestly. He had like 2 final blows. Oh wait, I'm the only one on fire.
Victory. Play of the game.
Fucking cool. Give me there. Give me there. See, I just needed a Zarya grab. The funny thing is, the Zarya didn't have a single good grab before this, and we pulled this off during the very last fight on point 5, but I guess it all worked out in the end. I only had to play Ana for about an hour and a half on day 7, but in total she took me 69 games and 13 hours and 53 minutes to complete, which is not quite as bad as Sombra. Ana was also much more manageable, as I was expecting her to take a while going into it, and I did split it across 2 days. Next up is Mercy, every ranked player's worst nightmare. Unlike Ana, Mercy has next to no damage potential as she only has her pistol with slow shooting projectiles, but also unlike Ana, Mercy's ultimate ability can be used to increase her survivability, movement, and damage output by giving her infinite ammo. I spent my first few games not trying to DPS too hard, and instead tried to learn Mercy's movement as best as I could. And although I was learning fast and supporting my team just fine, I felt so uncomfortable and out of place on Mercy, as it just felt like I was playing a completely different game, and frankly, it was a bit boring. After a few games, I managed to get into a game with an Ana who developed an unspoken connection with me and fed me a good few nanovalks, but as I was still learning Mercy, I was completely wasting these opportunities and barely getting any kills. After spending a bit more time learning Mercy, I decided to duo with someone from my chat who would consistently give me nanos every time I valked, so I had way more opportunities to make better plays. My strategy would be as follows: heal bot my team until I farmed a Valk, wait for one of my teammates to die so I could res them, and then pop Nano Valk and gun down as many people as possible on the enemy team. For the most part, I was only getting a double kill or very rarely a triple kill with the strategy, but I eventually got this play on New Junk City where I gunned down both a Zenyatta and Soldier and finished them with quick melees, demag to Diva and res their Venture, and then finished Baby Diva and an Ulting Reaper. Now, although this play was a bit spread out, it was still the best play I had so far, and no one else in the lobby got a team kill or anything like that, so my chances of play of the game were at an all-time high. But yeah, I didn't get it.
No, dude, what did he do?
We had a Hanzo this game? It was at the very beginning. That means no matter what I could have done, nothing would have changed. Oh my god, what, wait. What? Dude. He got 1 kill, 1 arrow connected. Actually robbed. Oh my god, that's the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. Whenever I've talked about being robbed out of plays of the game, you could at least argue for the other side, although you would be wrong. In this case, there's no explanation. I have no idea how this Hanzo got to play the game after connecting 1 single shot and missing like 10. Luckily, I was able to move on pretty quick, as just a couple games later, during a match on Gibraltar, I started going absolutely ballistic. I had so many crazy plays here during the final point that, for once, I was absolutely certain that I would get play of the game. And sure enough, alright.
Smiley face.
Please,
Exit set.
please, please, please,
Exit
please,
set.
please, 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 please.
Play.
Yes!
Oh
yes,
my god.
dude! Yes, dude! Finally!
Ah, nice.
Let's go! The last game. And
It was the first one I got,
and
nice.
it's a nano.
Huge.
Yeah, the Rhine Res was in the play.
Deserved play cause W.
Well, I knew the Rhine Revs was gonna be.
Let's
Oh,
go!
even. Damn. Even the,
Let's go!
damn, even the last one. I was super happy with this play of the game, as it felt so rewarding to finally pull it off, and although I was getting a nano pocket, it didn't feel cheap at all because, well, Mercy sucks, and good players should never get teamed right by her. I want to give a huge thanks to Gaslight Girl for the nanos. I had way more fun on Mercy because of them, and they're super chill to play with. In the end, Mercy took me 20 games and 4 hours and 59 minutes to complete, leaving only one hero left. You might be thinking, woohoo, only one hero left, the challenge is almost done, right? No. We're not even close to done yet. If you've been keeping track of the heroes I've already completed, you might have noticed that one hero in particular still hasn't made an appearance, and I'm of course talking about Wife Weaver. Wife Weaver is notorious for pretty much doing no damage, and most players have never seen a single play of the game on him, and likely wouldn't even recognize any of his highlight intros and would assume they're just some new shop item Blizzard is shilling. I use the default Wife Weaver skin because I would rather eat sandpaper flavored ice cream again before I spent a dime of my hard-earned money on this character. I did, however, use this weapon charm that I felt resonated with how I felt while playing him. Whenever I've talked about 2CP in this video, I've kinda implied that I would instantly get a play of the game there, which made it feel free or cheap to use, which to an extent is somewhat true, but for a hero like Life Weaver, the difference is almost completely unnoticeable, so I was going back and forth between quick play and 2CP to better my odds. Life Weaver has no damaging abilities whatsoever, although he does have some self-sustain through his dash. Pretty much the only reliable way of doing damage is with his headshots, but due to their slow projectile speed, I found myself having to get up close to do enough damage for a kill without having to reload, which, by the way, happens way too often as his clip size is quite small. Before I was going to bother DPSing on Life Weaver, I decided to spend my first game trolling my team a tad bit, and yeah, they didn't appreciate it all that much. It took me several games to get used to Life Weaver's cooldowns and his sleeper playstyle, but I was eventually able to play him as well as any other support. Similarly to Mercy, my strategy was to heal bot until I farmed ult, and then pop down tree to sustain myself while I DPS'd and tried to get at least 3 kills, although I was rarely getting more than 1 or 2. One of the best plays I made was during a match at New Junk City, where I killed a Doomstuck and Mailed, finished off an Echo and Mercy, and then helped kill a Kiri to make 4 kills. I was actually very hopeful that this could be play of the game, but of course it wasn't. It was just a Doomfist with the most basic and boring double kill of all time. After playing for about 13 hours so far, I took a break to sleep for a few hours and then get back to the grind, and after a few more hours of weaving to no success, I slept for another few hours. After getting some more food in me, I was ready to grind this out one final time. Okay, I'm not even gonna pretend to lie, this play felt a bit underwhelming to be honest, and was maybe a little bit cheap. But if you're expecting me to get a 5k in ranked or something, there's a 0% chance I was gonna do that, and I'd played enough Overwatch in the past week to give most humans irreparable mental health illnesses, so I was gonna take this play of the game and run with them. Although Lifeweaver took less time in games than Sombra, he was still much worse than her to play because Lifeweaver is boring, but with Sombra I could just fuck around for most of the match, and then come in and make big plays once I had my ult. I really wish I had more to talk about with how long Lifeweaver ended up taking me, but the reality is there were no cool plays or improvements in skill, just an endless loop of suffering on one of the dumbest and most boring video game characters ever created. And just like that, I had gotten to play the game with every single hero in Overwatch in just 1 week. But how did I do? Well, for starters, let's talk about day 7, where I completed 3 heroes in 108 games and streamed for a total of 38 hours and 27 minutes straight. Throughout the entire week, it took me around 465 games, 92 hours and 11 minutes of queue and game time, and 110 hours and 30 minutes streamed to complete a play of the game for all 41 heroes. Some of my more astute viewers might have noticed that I keep talking about how I did this challenge in a single week, which really doesn't make a ton of sense as some of my streams lasted longer than 24 hours and were counted as a single day. And to that I say, well, yeah, I admit it did end up taking maybe a little bit over a week, but I still did this challenge in 7 full streams in a row, so it was more like a baker's dozen of a week. My top 5 favorite play of the games I got were on Reaper, Winston, Junker Queen, Symmetra, and Mercy, as I was able to make pretty fun and memorable plays with them, and my god, just look at that knife. My worst play of the games would probably be on Wrecking Ball and Pharah because they're just so sloppy and I honestly didn't deserve them. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned that I wouldn't abuse a Nano Pocket unless it was more fun to do so, and I only ended up doing this for Brig and Mercy, so I feel like I did a pretty good job on that front. Now let's take a look at the tier list I made at the start of the challenge. As a reminder, this is how hard I thought each hero would be, and while some of them were spot on, others were not so much. Some of the biggest differences were Sombra, who obviously took much longer than I thought she would, and Moira, who I thought would take like 2 games, ended up taking around 6. A good few heroes were much easier to complete than I thought, such as Symmetra, Widowmaker, and Ball, who I all thought would take several hours due to my lack of experience on them, but all of them ended up being relatively easy to complete. Now let's take a look at some stats for each role. For the tank role, it took me a grand total of 35 games and 6 hours and 35 minutes to complete all 12 tank heroes. On average, it took me 2.92 games per hero, and the average time was 32 minutes and 55 seconds for me to get a play of the game. The fastest hero was a tie between Ramatra, Winston, Diva, and Orisa, all only taking me a single game, and the longest hero was Wrecking Ball, who took me 7 games. Moving on to the DPS role, it took me a grand total of 204 games and 35 hours and 30 minutes to complete all 18 DPS heroes. On average, it took me 11.3 games and 1 hour and 58 minutes for me to get a play of the game, although this includes Sombra, which if you remember, took more time than all of the other DPS combined. The averages without Sombra were 6.6 games and 1 hour and 1 minute, which is quite a bit lower. The fastest hero was a tie between Reaper and Pharah for 1 game, and the longest hero was of course Sombra with 91 games, and the longest after her was Tracer with 19 games. Lastly, for the support role, it took me a grand total of 227 games and 46 hours to complete all 11 support heroes. On average, it took me 20.6 games and 4 hours and 11 minutes for me to get a play of the game. The fastest hero was Alari with 2 games, followed by Kiriko with 3 games. The longest hero was of course Lifeweaver with 88 games, followed by Ana with 69 games. Although the last few days ended up being marathon streams, I still feel like I generally had a really good pace throughout the challenge, and it was genuinely fun to do as every play of the game gave me a shot of dopamine that pushed me to keep going. I want to give a massive thanks again to Pothos, Murky, and Gaslight Girl for the help during this challenge, as playing with the duo every now and then was a massive breath of fresh air that helped keep my sanity in check. The script for this video ended up being 23 pages long, single-spaced, which is way more than anything I've had to do for a college assignment in the past 3 years. I spent a ton of time on this video and made it in just a few weeks, so if you would do me a favor and subscribe, it would truly mean the world to me. I don't plan on making a ton of Overwatch videos in the future, although I will stream it here and there, but hey, maybe there'll be something you like down the line. Anyways, hope you have fun queuing into the depths of night, and hopefully you win a few games. Bye bye. You know, Lifeweaver.